A judge scoffed at Maid's daughter's plea. The court fell silent minutes later. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's jump into today's story. It all began in a grand courtroom, where the tension was thick and the air hung heavy with power. The judge, a man known for his stern demeanor and reputation for dismissing cases quickly, sat at the head of the room. His robe flowed around him like a symbol of authority, while the lawyers and the gallery looked on, waiting for the proceedings to begin. At the back of the courtroom, in the shadows of the ornate room, stood a young girl. She wasn't meant to be seen. Her name was Lily, and she was the daughter of a maid. Lily had never imagined herself in a place like this, surrounded by polished marble floors, towering columns, and the whispers of high society. Her mother worked for one of the wealthiest families in town, and Lily had always been taught to keep her head down, to stay invisible. But today was different. Today, she had a voice, and she wasn't going to stay silent. As the courtroom settled, Lily's eyes darted nervously between the judge and her mother, who stood quietly by the side. It was a high-profile case, one that involved a wealthy businessman trying to avoid paying for a property he had promised to give away. The legal system, as always, seemed stacked in his favor. But Lily knew something the others didn't. She had overheard the businessman's lawyer slip up, revealing a crucial piece of information that could turn the case around. It was small, but it was enough to change everything. When it was her turn to speak, Lily stepped forward. Her hands trembled, and her heart raced as she faced the judge. She opened her mouth to speak, but the judge, clearly irritated, waved his hand dismissively. "What could you possibly know about law, young girl?" He sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. He was a man of immense power, and he clearly didn't think much of a maid's daughter standing in front of him. But Lily wasn't deterred. She repeated her plea, this time with more confidence. "I know the property deed is fake," she said, her voice steady despite the rush of emotions inside her. The judge snorted in laughter, his deep, mocking chuckle filling the room. "And what would a child like you know about property deeds?" he scoffed. The room fell silent as everyone turned their attention to Lily. She had been publicly humiliated by one of the most powerful men in the courtroom, but she stood firm. It wasn't just the words that had shocked the judge, but the quiet, determined strength in the girl's eyes. As she spoke again, the courtroom seemed to hold its breath. "I've seen the real deed," she continued, "and I know the one you have isn't it. It's a forgery." The gallery shifted uncomfortably, and the judge's expression faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. He smirked, clearly unconvinced. "And how? Pray tell, would a child like you know this?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Lily's heart pounded in her chest, but she pressed on, undeterred by the mockery. "I overheard the lawyer speaking about it. He thought no one was listening, but I was. The name on the deed was wrong. It's not the name of the real owner." Silence followed her words. The judge stared at her for a moment, and then, for the first time, he looked uncertain. The power of the courtroom, the air of authority that had hung so thickly, suddenly seemed less certain. Lily's courage had struck a chord, and the weight of her words was beginning to settle in. Could this young girl really know something that everyone else had missed? The room remained still for a long moment after Lily's words. The judge's expression shifted from smug confidence to a fleeting sense of doubt. He looked down at the documents in front of him, his fingers trembling ever so slightly as he adjusted the papers. For a brief moment, he looked less like the figure of authority he had always been and more like a man unsure of his next move. The weight of the situation started to sink in. The audience in the courtroom held their breath, eyes darting between Lily and the judge. There was no more laughter, no mocking tones, just silence, a quiet tension that hung heavy in the air. Lily stood firm, her hands still shaking, but her voice was steady. The judge cleared his throat and leaned back in his chair, his eyes now fixed on her. "And what exactly do you expect me to do with this information, young lady?" he asked, his voice now devoid of the mockery from earlier. Lily's heart raced, but she kept her gaze locked on his. "I expect you to do the right thing," she said simply. The judge's face twisted slightly, his lips curling into a thin, frustrated line. He glanced over at the attorney for the wealthy businessman, who was now visibly sweating. The lawyer quickly shuffled through the papers in front of him, his face paling. He had not expected this. This was not part of the plan. The tension in the room grew as the lawyer desperately searched for something, anything, to refute Lily's claim. But there was nothing. No way to deny the truth she had uncovered. The judge leaned forward, his hands pressed together as he studied Lily. He had seen many things in his time, but a child standing up to him like this was something he had never expected. And suddenly, the tables had turned. He was no longer the one in control. The realization hit him hard. "You are saying that the deed to this property is forged?" he asked, his tone quieter now, more cautious. Lily nodded. "Yes. The name on it doesn't match the true owner. It was altered." The courtroom murmured, the whispers spreading like wildfire. For the first time, the judge seemed unsure of himself. He had dealt with power, money, and legal tricks his whole life. But he had never dealt with a child who could see through it all, who had the courage to speak up when everyone else would have backed down. The room was quiet, save for the soft rustling of papers and the distant hum of the city outside. The judge sat there for what felt like an eternity, his mind racing. Could he really let this stand? Could he afford to ignore the truth, even if it came from someone so young, so unexpected? The room waited for his decision. Lily held her breath, her hands clenched. At her sides, she knew that this was her one chance, her one shot to make things right. The judge finally stood, his gaze fixed on the young girl. He took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts, and then spoke. "This court will take a short recess. I need time to review the evidence." With those words, the tension in the room finally broke. The whispers grew louder, but this time, they were filled with curiosity, not ridicule. Lily had done it. She had made the judge pause, made him reconsider everything he thought he knew. As she stepped back, she exchanged a quick glance with her mother, who was standing nearby. The pride in her mother's eyes was unmistakable, and Lily felt a rush of determination flood through her. She had stood up when no one else would. She had shown that even the smallest voice could have the power to change everything. The judge called for the recess, but the tension in the room was far from over. Lily's heart pounded as she stood there, surrounded by the quiet whispers of the gallery. Her mind raced, wondering if this was really happening. Could she have actually caused the judge to hesitate? Could she have turned the tide? Her mother, standing quietly beside her, offered a reassuring smile, but Lily could see the concern in her eyes. This was uncharted territory for both of them. As the recess continued, the judge retreated to his chambers with his colleagues, leaving the courtroom to buzz with curiosity. The moment felt like an eternity. The courtroom, once filled with the sounds of legal jargon and confident assertions, was now a place of uncertainty. The powerful businessman, who had been so certain of his victory, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The lawyer who had been so dismissive of Lily's presence now avoided eye contact, clearly rattled by the unexpected turn of events. The clock on the wall seemed to tick louder with each passing second. Lily, however, remained still, her eyes fixed on the door the judge had walked through. This was the moment of truth. Could she keep the pressure on? Could she force the judge to do the right thing? She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She had done everything she could. Now, it was in the judge's hands. The minutes stretched on, but finally, the door opened. The judge returned to the bench, his expression unreadable. He glanced at the documents in front of him, then looked up at the silent crowd. For a moment, there was no sound in the room. The judge cleared his throat and began to speak, his voice now quieter, more measured than before. "After reviewing the evidence presented and considering the testimony given, I have decided to reopen this case." The words hung in the air like a weight being lifted. Lily's heart skipped a beat, but she dared not show too much emotion. This was far from over. The judge continued, "The deed in question is indeed forged, and I will instruct the necessary authorities to investigate the matter further." There it was. The truth had won. The powerful businessman's face turned ashen. He had lost, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The judge's decision had shattered the illusion of invincibility that the wealthy often carried. The room began to buzz with murmurs of shock and disbelief. Lily's mother stepped forward, her eyes glistening with tears, but she kept her composure. She had always known her daughter was strong, but this moment confirmed it. Lily had not only uncovered the truth, but she had forced the wheels of justice to turn. The judge then addressed the businessman directly, his voice stern. This court does not tolerate deceit, regardless of the wealth or status of the individuals involved. You will be held accountable for your actions. The businessman's arrogance had evaporated, replaced by a look of desperation. The judge's words were final. Lily had not only won the case for her family, but she had exposed the corruption that lurked beneath the surface of power and wealth. As the gavel struck the desk, signaling the end of the session, Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. Her heart slowed, and for the first time that day, she allowed herself a small smile. She had done it. Against all odds, a maid's daughter had stood up for what was right, and in doing so, had changed everything. The aftermath of the court ruling was a surreal moment for Lily and her mother. The weight of the victory still hadn't fully sunk in, but the relief was palpable. As they walked out of the courtroom, Lily glanced back once more at the judge, who now seemed like a completely different person. The man who had scoffed at her plea was now sitting in quiet reflection, having made a decision that no one expected. The businessman, who had walked into the court with so much confidence, was left standing in stunned silence. His empire, once built on arrogance and deceit, had begun to crumble in the face of truth. Lily felt a surge of pride, but also a quiet sense of disbelief. She had done it. She had stood up for herself, for her mother, and for all those who were overlooked and underestimated. Outside the courtroom, the cold air of the city greeted them, a sharp contrast to the heated tension inside. Lily's mother took her hand, her grip tight and warm. "I am so proud of you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Lily smiled but said nothing, still processing the weight of what had just happened. They walked together, the hustle of the city surrounding them, but for a moment, they were lost in their own world. The victory was not just about the case. It was about something much deeper. Lily had proven that even in a world where the powerful often go unchecked, there was room for justice, even if it came from the most unlikely source. As they made their way to the car, Lily couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought her here. It hadn't been easy. The fear of being invisible, the constant pressure to stay silent, had always been a part of her life. But today, she had broken free from that. She had stood tall in the face of ridicule and had won. "Do you think it will really change anything?" Lily asked her mother as they climbed into the car. Her voice was soft, but it held a sense of hope. Her mother looked at her and smiled. "Yes," she said firmly. "It will. You've shown everyone that it's not about who you are or where you come from. It's about doing what's right." The drive home was quiet, the weight of the day settling in. The city lights flashed by in a blur, but Lily's mind was elsewhere. She had done more than expose a forgery. She had shown that courage and truth could cut through the noise of power and wealth. As the car pulled into their small apartment complex, Lily felt a sense of calm wash over her. The world had felt so vast and so intimidating, but now it seemed just a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable. She had found her voice, and that made all the difference. When they reached their apartment, Lily's mother held her close. "We've been through a lot, but this is a new beginning for both of us. You've shown me that you're not just the daughter of a maid. You are someone who can change the world." Lily nodded, the weight of her mother's words sinking in. She had done it, and in the process, she had changed everything. The next few days were a whirlwind for Lily and her mother. The news of the court case quickly spread, and what had begun as a small victory for a maid's daughter became a story that captured the attention of the entire city. Lily found herself thrust into the spotlight, her name being mentioned in news reports and online articles. It was overwhelming, but she tried to keep her focus on the bigger picture. Her mother, always protective, did her best to shield Lily from the constant attention. But the weight of the world seemed to shift, just slightly, in their favor. The businessman who had tried to avoid paying for the property was now facing serious consequences. Authorities had started their investigation, and the public outcry was growing louder by the day. Lily had unknowingly sparked a movement, one that began with a single voice standing up against the tide of injustice. On the day the authorities raided the businessman's offices, Lily and her mother sat quietly in their apartment, watching the news on the television. The weight of the moment felt heavy on Lily's shoulders. She had done what no one expected, but the reality of it was just beginning to settle in. Her small act of courage had started something much bigger than she had anticipated. "I didn't think it would go this far," Lily said softly, her voice tinged with disbelief. Her mother smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just change the case, Lily. You changed everything. You showed people that no matter who you are, your voice matters." Lily nodded, but a part of her still couldn't quite grasp the magnitude of what had happened. She had grown up thinking that the world was a place where the powerful always got their way, and the weak were simply forgotten. But now, everything had shifted. As days passed, the media frenzy slowly began to die down, but the impact of Lily's actions remained. The businessman was charged with fraud and facing serious legal battles. His empire, once untouchable, was now under intense scrutiny. For the first time, it was clear that no amount of money or power could protect him from the consequences of his actions. But for Lily, the victory wasn't just about seeing the powerful man brought to justice. It was about the realization that she had the strength to stand up for what was right, even when no one else believed in her. She had become a symbol of hope for those who had been silenced for too long. As the weeks passed, Lily's life slowly returned to normal. She returned to school, though now she was known as the girl who had taken on the system and won. Her classmates, who had once ignored her, now looked at her with admiration. Even the teachers treated her with a newfound respect. But it wasn't the recognition that mattered most to Lily. What mattered was the quiet strength she had found within herself. She knew that her fight wasn't over. There would always be injustice in the world, and there would always be people who needed someone to speak up for them. Lily had proven that one voice could make a difference, and she was ready to keep fighting. One evening, as she and her mother sat together, her mother turned to her with a soft smile. "You've made a difference, Lily. You've shown us all that even the smallest person can change the course of history." Lily looked at her mother and smiled back, a sense of peace settling over her. The journey had been long and filled with obstacles, but in the end, it was worth it. She had found her voice, and nothing would ever silence her again. Months passed since the court case, but the ripple effect of Lily's bravery continued to shape the lives of those around her. The world she once saw as distant and unapproachable now seemed full of possibilities. Lily had proven to herself, her mother, and everyone who had doubted her, that justice could be achieved, no matter how insurmountable the odds. It wasn't just about the victory in the courtroom. It was about standing up for what was right, about showing the world that even the smallest voices could challenge the loudest forces. One afternoon, as Lily sat with her mother at their small kitchen table, they watched the news together. The story of the businessman's downfall had become a cautionary tale, spreading across media outlets, showing just how quickly power could be stripped away when faced with truth. Lily felt a sense of satisfaction, but it was tempered by a deeper understanding. This victory was just one chapter. She couldn't stop here. She had learned the power of her voice, but now, she wanted to use it for something bigger. "What happens next?" Lily asked her mother, breaking the silence. Her mother looked at her with a soft smile, eyes filled with pride. "You can do anything you set your mind to now, Lily," she said. "This is just the beginning for you." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of possibility. Lily had never considered what might come after the case. Her world had been defined by the struggle, by the daily challenges her mother faced, by their quiet life in the background of a bustling, often indifferent world. But now, that world had changed. Lily knew that the impact of what she had done would open new doors for her, not just in her own life, but for others as well. She wanted to be a voice for those who had been silenced, to stand up for the underdog, the invisible people who, like her mother, worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Her journey had shown her the truth. Power wasn't only about money or status. True power came from standing up for others and having the courage to make your voice heard, no matter who was listening. Lily's new resolve sparked a change within her. She decided to pursue a career in law, to help those who, like her, had no other way of defending themselves. She enrolled in college, taking the first steps toward a future she had never dared to dream about before. With each passing day, Lily's confidence grew. She became involved in local activism, speaking out on behalf of others, just as she had spoken out in that courtroom. Her story inspired many, and she found that people were willing to listen. The quiet girl who had once been invisible was now a beacon of hope for others. and she knew her path would lead her to make even more of an impact in the world. The businessman who had once been untouchable was now facing consequences. But for Lily, that victory was just the beginning. She had found her purpose, standing up for what was right, no matter the cost. The city had changed in small ways, but Lily knew her fight wasn't over. She was ready for whatever came next. And as she walked down the street, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, she smiled. The world may have been daunting before, but now, she knew it was full of possibilities waiting to be seized. Lily's path continued to unfold before her, each step taking her closer to the future she had once only dreamed about. The support from her mother and the recognition from the community gave her the strength to push forward. She had not only changed the course of one court case, but had begun to reshape her own life and the lives of others who had been silenced. She continued her studies, determined to become a lawyer, to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. Her passion for justice was no longer just a distant thought. It was her purpose. As the years passed, Lily gained more and more recognition for her efforts. Her name became synonymous with standing up against injustice, and she began to receive invitations to speak at events, sharing her story and inspiring others. She was no longer the shy, quiet girl who hid in the shadows. She had transformed into a powerful voice for the voiceless. But no matter how much her life had changed, Lily never forgot where she came from. Her mother, who had always worked tirelessly to make sure Lily had the opportunities she needed, was still her biggest supporter. They celebrated together every small victory, whether it was a good grade in class or a new opportunity to help someone in need. Lily had learned from her mother that true strength wasn't about wealth or status. It was about character, perseverance, and doing what was right, even when no one else was watching. One evening, after Lily had given a talk at a local community center, her mother turned to her with a proud smile. "I knew you could do it, Lily. You've shown the world that we are not defined by our circumstances, but by the choices we make." Lily smiled back, her heart full of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom." As Lily's career progressed, she became involved in several high-profile cases, always fighting for the underdog. But her success never changed her core beliefs. She never lost sight of the fact that real success wasn't measured by the wealth she could accumulate, but by the number of people she could help. Her story became an inspiration to many, especially young people who saw themselves in her struggles. She was living proof that a single person could make a difference, no matter their background. Her work began to touch lives in ways she had never imagined. But despite the accolades, Lily remained humble, always focused on her mission to create a more just world. One day, as she sat in her office, reflecting on how far she had come, she received a letter. It was from the young girl who had been watching her in that courtroom all those years ago, the same girl who had once felt invisible. The letter was short but powerful. "You've inspired me to speak up for what's right. I'm going to become a lawyer just like you." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she read the words. She had become the person she had once needed, and now she was passing the torch to the next generation. It was a full-circle moment for Lily, one that made all the struggles worth it. The world had changed because of her, and now she was helping others change their world too. With a deep breath, Lily looked out the window of her office, watching the sunset. The path ahead was still long, but she knew one thing for sure. Her voice would never be silenced again. Years had passed since Lily's court victory, but the ripple effects of that day still reverberated through her life. Her career had flourished, and she had become a respected figure in the legal world. But what mattered most to her wasn't the accolades or the recognition. It was the difference she had made in the lives of others. She had taken the injustice she had witnessed and turned it into something powerful. It wasn't just about one case or one victory. It was about a movement that had begun with a single act of courage. Lily's days were now filled with cases that pushed the boundaries of the law. She worked tirelessly for those who had been wronged, the voiceless, the forgotten. But even as she fought for justice, Lily never lost sight of the lessons her mother had taught her. She had come from humble beginnings, and she had seen firsthand how easy it was for the world to overlook the people who mattered most. The underdogs, the silent ones. One afternoon, Lily received a call that would change everything. It was from an old colleague, a journalist who had been following her journey for years. "Lily, I've been looking into something," the journalist said. "There's a new case that's come to light. one that could shake the foundations of everything you've been working for. Lily listened intently as the journalist explained the details of a massive corruption scandal involving a powerful corporation that was exploiting vulnerable communities. The story was shocking, but what struck Lily the most was that the victims were people she had fought for throughout her career. This was a battle she couldn't ignore. It was time to take on the system once again. Lily knew that this would be her toughest challenge yet. The corporation was well-connected, with powerful allies in politics and business. The odds were stacked against her, but that didn't scare her. She had faced challenges before, and she had always come out stronger on the other side. As she gathered her team and began to prepare for the fight, Lily's mind wandered back to that moment in the courtroom all those years ago, the moment when she had stood up and made her voice heard. It felt like a lifetime ago, yet in many ways, it was still the foundation of everything she had accomplished. It was a reminder that change could start with one person, one voice. And she was ready to use hers again. The case was a grueling battle, one that tested Lily's resolve more than anything before. The corporation had deep pockets and endless resources, but Lily had something far more powerful on her side, her unwavering belief in justice. Day after day, she pored over evidence, met with witnesses, and strategized with her team. But as the case progressed, Lily began to notice something. The more she fought, the more she inspired others. People began to come forward, offering their support, sharing their stories. The community that had once been silent was now finding its voice, and Lily had helped give it to them. In the end, after months of hard work and determination, the truth came to light. The corporation was exposed for its wrongdoings, and those who had been exploited were finally given the justice they deserved. The victory was sweet, but it was bittersweet, too. Lily knew that this fight wasn't over. There would always be more battles to fight, more injustice to stand up to. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She had done it again. She had made a difference. And the world was just a little bit more just because of it. As Lily sat on the steps of her office building, looking out at the city, a sense of peace washed over her. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow across the skyline. But it wasn't just the beauty of the moment that brought her peace. It was the knowledge that she had done something meaningful, something that would last far beyond the cases she had won or the accolades she had received. She had sparked change. She had proven that even the smallest voice, the most unlikely person, could challenge the most powerful forces. Looking back, it was hard to believe how far she had come. The girl who once hid in the shadows had become a champion for the voiceless. The girl who had been told to stay quiet had found the courage to speak up and change the course of her life, and the lives of many others. But Lily knew that this was not the end of her journey. There would always be more challenges, more battles to fight. There would always be people in need of a voice. And she was ready for whatever came next. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from her mother. "I'm so proud of you, Lily. You've shown the world what's possible. Don't ever stop." Lily smiled as she read the message. Her mother had been her rock through it all, and it was because of her that Lily had never given up. She had learned from her mother that true strength wasn't about wealth, power, or status. It was about integrity, perseverance, and compassion. As the evening grew darker, Lily stood up, taking one last look at the city below. She had always felt like an outsider, like someone who didn't belong in a world of power and privilege. But now, she understood that she had every right to be there. She had earned her place. She had made a difference. And that was all that mattered. As she walked away, her steps felt lighter than they ever had before. The path ahead was uncertain, but Lily knew that with every challenge, every obstacle, there would always be an opportunity to make a difference. She had already proven that. And as she took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next, she knew one thing for sure. Her journey had only just begun. In this inspiring story of resilience and courage, a young girl from humble beginnings defies all odds and takes on a powerful millionaire in a fight for justice. From being dismissed as invisible to becoming a symbol of hope, this story reveals the transformative power of standing up for what is right. As Lily fights for the truth, she not only changes the course of a court case, but also sparks a movement that challenges the status quo. Her journey from an overlooked maid's daughter to a respected figure in the legal world is one of the most remarkable millionaire stories of our time. This tale reminds us that anyone, no matter their background, has the power to change the world. Along the way, Lily learns valuable life lessons from her mother, showing us that true strength comes from integrity, perseverance, and compassion. The story of how Lily used her voice to make a difference is a testament to the impact of one person standing against injustice. Her courage inspires countless others, proving that millionaire stories aren't always about wealth. They're about the legacies we create. As Lily continues her journey, we are reminded that the most powerful millionaire stories are those of individuals who choose to speak out and make a difference, regardless of the obstacles they face. This is not just a story of one girl's fight. It is a reminder that every action has the potential to create lasting change.